I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
All I can say is this interview was crazy. I had on Andrew Gold. He actually came down to where I live and stayed over, and we had a great time. If you don't remember Andrew Gold, he is famous for exposing fake psychics. He's investigated cults. He's investigated psychopaths and faith healers. And he's a really good investigator on anything that makes him curious. And this time, he's investigating me, and we have a great conversation. Here's part one of it right now.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
I don't normally ask for anything, but this is a little interlude. Please subscribe to the podcast. It helps the podcast stay alive, ranks high, gets me subscribers, gives me that dopamine kick. Subscribe to the podcast. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Let me know on Twitter if you do it, and enjoy. Is it a valid stance to just not care about vaccines?
I don't think you're
like, if you want to take it. And they've already just said that has nothing to do with transmissibility. So it's just your own personal choice if you want to take it or not.
That's sort of everything, isn't it? Is it okay to not have a strong opinion? We talked about this before, didn't we? You were saying it's fascist to just be quiet.
Yeah. Like my kids have informed me now that silence is violence.
Yeah. I think that's a really dangerous place to be, because it means you've got to have a strong opinion one way or the other. And you start with the strong opinion and then you find the stats for it.
Yeah, like, like voting is an interesting thing. Everybody says you must vote. If you want to have a voice in your government, you must vote, or if you want to have a voice in your country or even in your community. But and if you say you're not voting, people act like, so many people died for your right to vote. Yep. But at the same time, it's a right. It's not forced. We don't live in this fascist society. Like, we have a right to vote, but it's not it's not against the law to not vote.
You have a right to get an abortion, but we don't force people to get them.
I force all my girlfriends to get abortions, but kidding aside.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. I don't know how this is going to go down, me saying this, but I've never voted.
I've never voted either.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is great.
But this election in particular, everybody was upset at me. I even had like a debate. Like I allowed myself to get drawn into this live debate about voting, and you could see how people think. Like everybody was saying, well, what I just said, that people died for my right to vote, which I never asked anyone to do, but okay. And another thing people said was that, look, this is, I have a daughter who is X, Y, and Z, and if you don't vote, then her rights are going to be taken away. And I said, my daughter has the same X, Y, and Z, and I'll talk about it on my podcast, which reaches a lot of people. And that's more important than a vote. Like a vote is 1 out of 120 million. Podcast that reaches a lot of people. So, and I feel to have a podcast, it's good to be as neutral as possible. So I could talk to Democrats, I could talk to Republicans, I could talk to Kanye West if he wants to come on, hint Kanye, and whatever.
Yeah, well, speaking of hints, Kanye, what about who you just had on your show? Because it's caused a bit of controversy, Andrew Tate.
Oh, yeah. Andrew Tate's another one where I saw some tweets from people who had known me for a long time, and they're like, literally one tweet said, bye.
Yeah,
like, that was just it. Like, and then another tweet was, I forgot what they all said, but, so disappointed. Like, and all I said, I tweeted, just all I'm asking is that you listen to it and then judge. Don't judge and then not listen to it. Cause it's interesting. Cause I've known this guy had more Google searches on him than Donald Trump during the summer. So that's interesting. And then he got banned. Why did he get banned? Why were people attracted to his message? Is it just 12-year-old boys who hate women? I don't know. I didn't really listen to his stuff before researching this podcast, but it was a very interesting podcast about lots of different issues. And I've known him personally for a long time. Like I knew his dad decades ago. So it would make sense for me to have him on because he's been in the news a lot. And I enjoyed the podcast. It was a great podcast.
Yeah. For those who don't know, what has he been in the news for and who is he?
So he there's like a billion views or billions of views of him on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. And what he talks about basically is that his own view of men's rights and women's rights and how he thinks it's been distorted in society. And, men commit suicide at a rate of 5 to 1 over women. Why is this? This is never talked about. Why is this the case? And so he digs down and he says it's his own personal opinion. It's his own personal experience. It's not based on statistics, but a lot of people follow him and some of the things he says are considered very extreme, but nothing he says is as extreme as the basic rap song, referring to Kanye. Like every rap song has more, crazy stuff in it than anything Andrew says. And a lot of the stuff Andrew says makes a lot of sense that people should listen to. Like, you always have to question who is giving us the message in the media? Why are they giving us this message? What's the agenda? And okay, he pointed out how like outside Ukraine, because I guess he's based near Ukraine. Outside of it, a lot of women and children are leaving the country, which is reasonable. Everybody should leave if they're afraid to get killed. But he said men are not allowed to leave. And so he's just wondering, why did they make a difference between men and women? Well, historically and biologically, women take care of the children, and that's how it's happened for the human race for as long as we've been around. So he just a lot of the points he makes is from like evolutionary psychology. It's like literally said in academic departments. He just has an interesting way or a weird way of saying things. Like instead of saying men can deadlift more weight than women on average, he says women are weaker than men, which is almost saying the same thing, but he says it is more provocative. So people take it more provocatively, and he says this enough and he gets billions of views, they ban him. Meanwhile, like the Ayatollah of Iran might say, the only good Jew is a dead Jew, and that guy's fine because he like runs a country or whatever.
Is he on Twitter?
He's on Twitter, yeah.
I
saw he tweeted that or something like that a couple years ago, and I've been thinking of it ever since. Like I reported his tweet, like why wasn't he banned? So
the Ayatollah's just not banned. He's unbannable. You can't
he's just tweeting in the bathroom like everyone else, the Ayatollah.
Oh, he sounds like a nice guy, doesn't he? He sounds lovely. Well, look, the thing with Andrew, didn't he do bad stuff as well? I'm just thinking off the top of my head now, and we'll have to take this bit out if that's not true. Was there like an abusive thing?
No. There's a video of him, quote unquote, beating up a woman, and to me, so I watched the video, and because it's all over the place, I watched the video. It looked to me like role play. Like nobody was acting seriously in it. And the woman herself made a video saying this was her thing. She liked it. She still likes Andrew. You know, there were a couple videos like that where the women all said this was not a big deal. People were like really making this a big deal, and it wasn't. And it, you know, they weren't forced to say that unless, I don't know, maybe they were, but
they could have been.
Maybe they're in his basement and he's forcing them to say it. But
it also doesn't mean you did it. I mean, this is the thing. Like, we both get a lot of, you know, flack from people for who we might interview and things like that. But you can't win because you could do something for the BBC. Well, the BBC hid the allegations about Jimmy Savile for decades. The I don't want to use the word on YouTube, but the guy, do you know Jimmy Savile?
No.
He was one of the most famous children's TV presenters of the 80s, 70s, and 80s. You can imagine where this is going.
Children, yes. Okay,
yeah.
So now we know the word.
Well, also, like, you know, not just that, it was like beyond that. We're talking about, because he was he had friends in high places. He was like in with the royal family. He was in with all the celebrities, like the top people and the charities and stuff. So he was just left to just wander the halls of hospitals and psychiatric wards for children, and also morgues and funeral homes. So you get where that might be going.
Oh my gosh.
And that all came out after he died. And that was a lot of the BBC people knew about it and didn't let it out. So you go and make something for the BBC, fine. But what they did is much worse than what you've just described about Andrew Tate. And then where do you go? Because every channel has got some sort of history with doing awful, awful things.
Yeah, every government, every king and queen in England, every president here, like you name me a president, I could tell you some scandal that they've been involved in that just sort of is like brushed under the carpet when they're gone. Like everybody. I mean, George Washington had slaves. I mean, now that's talked about, but I don't know. Maybe Barack Obama has a clean slate. I don't know.
Don't say that. You're going to annoy people.
Yeah, I'm not voting. I'm not saying I'm voting for him. I'm just saying I don't know of any scandal. Okay, well, I will say one scandal is that he forced all the Swiss banks to open up to see who was kind of hiding assets from all the way back to World War II, and it was a lot of Jewish people, actually. So I'll tell you a story that I've never actually told before. I don't think I've ever told this on the podcast before. So a bunch of Orthodox Jews came to me once, and they described this whole scenario where they had friends going to jail because these friends had Swiss bank accounts where their great-grandparents from the Holocaust had squirreled away money in these Swiss banks, and on the interest or whatever it is, they never paid taxes back in 1945. And so now they're going to jail because Obama forced all the banks to open up. So here's the problem. I'm taking notes. This sounds like an interesting story. I was going to either write a story about or do a podcast about. And then they offered to pay me. And I said, this is over a decade ago, so it's not like a big deal now. But I said to them, now I can't do anything for you. You just offered to pay me in a room full of people. Like I can't mention this story ever. I'm mentioning it now, of course, but it's 10 years later. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the only thing I could think of with Obama.
That's pretty crazy. Wait, so what's the moral bad thing here?
That he was, their theory, and I don't know if this is true or not, but their theory was that he was targeting Jews. And he had a slight history before he was elected of his preacher or reverend had made some anti-Semitic speeches when he was in the church. And so, but he disavowed that reverend. So there's no evidence that he's actually anti-Semitic or anything. And I don't think he is, but that was their claim.
Is there anyone you wouldn't interview?
Is there anyone
out of moral, some sort of moral compass thing? There
is somebody I didn't interview. I feel like Alex Jones I didn't. Jay, do you know who did I say no to because he was a bad guy?
The guy from Papa John?
Oh, yeah.
The Papa John guy.
Yeah, the pizza guy. Because he had said some very racist things, and now he's just trying to cover it up because he was losing customers. And I just didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to be a tool for him.
Who did Papa John say bad things about?
Black people. So I didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And then RFK Jr. we didn't air. So because it was just I was more interested in him in the Kennedys and the political dynasty and all that. And then he went on like this 45-minute rant about vaccines. This is way before COVID. And I was like, there's nothing for me to say here. I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. I couldn't ask him anything. He had researched it for decades. I had done zero research on it. So I just didn't air it. What
Yeah.
about you? Is there anybody? Because you go for
Yeah.
but the thing is, nobody, like, if you interview a thinks you're a
Don't
it's
say the
not
word.
like,
YouTube.
oh
YouTube.
no, I can't. We're gonna have to like blur that
We'll
word
beep
out.
it.
So okay, so who wouldn't you have on your podcast? The thing is, your podcast is different than mine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm having on people who I don't mind giving them a platform to share their views, whereas you interview criminals and
Yeah.
fake psychic healers and cult leaders, and so it's not like you're sharing your platform with them. So I'm wondering, like, is there someone so extreme that you can't handle the fact that they're on your podcast?
No, I don't think so. It wouldn't be a moral thing. It would be it would be just the thing that they believe is bananas. And I don't want to have that conversation. So I often get emails from people saying I'm not open-minded because I won't entertain sort of paranormal stuff. You know, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of that stuff. So there's often that open-minded thing. I think that drives me mad, actually, because they don't understand. Of course, everyone thinks they're open-minded, and being open-minded is being open-minded to the fact that they might be wrong. Because I think we all start from a religious place. At least we did 20, 30 years ago. Everyone starts from whether it's a church or synagogue. It's like religion is the main, and being open-minded to me is breaking free from that. It's not just having more religion, but I'm getting all that open mind stuff. So that's who I would probably say no to, and I have done. I've get these emails, you know, somebody was saying they were in the Moonies cult, and it's like, I've left the Moonies, but now I've worked out why the Bible is actually an allegory for evolution, and just all this stuff, and I just don't have the patience for it. But in terms of like horrible things someone's done, I think I'd have Hitler on. I would have, because why not? It's not, what's it going to do? It's going to promote their horrible views. Okay.
Right. It's not going to be like, that Hitler guy sounds really racist. It's not like people are going to say that after listening to your podcast.
Well, maybe they would.
That would be scary.
Well, this is it. So one of the main threads in my podcast is trying to show that, you know, that banality of evil thing, that everybody thinks they're doing a good thing. And it's so simplistic to presume that you can never be the bad person because you've got good intentions. Well, everyone else did as well. I don't know about Hitler, and I know that 1% of the population are psychopaths. So maybe he was just a psychopath. He probably was. But so many people throughout history must have thought they were really doing the right thing for them.
You mentioned you had some guy from the Aryan Brotherhood on. Like, what was that like?
That was interesting. But so he was someone that I pushed back a bit. The thing is, that was one of those ones where I co-hosted with Sean Atwood. And Sean is a much more forgiving interviewer than I am, I think, and even more forgiving, I should say. So he just sort of, you know, he'll take them a little bit more at their word, and I don't think he wants the friction. He just enjoys the conversation. And because Sean organized that one, I didn't feel at liberty to push back as much as I would have done on mine. But I did push back a bit because he was reframing a lot of stuff. And he was saying stuff that it could be true, I don't know, that when the Aryan Brotherhood started, they weren't a racist organization in prison. It was more to do with, you know, white people being a minority and needing a group together, and the swastika didn't come into their symbol until quite a bit later, and things like that. And he was very philosophical, and he seems to have changed his ways, but he also didn't seem to want to take responsibility for almost anything. I'm reluctant to criticize too much because he's, you know, quite a scary person.
But you know, it's interesting though, that one you co-hosted with someone, and I think when you co-host, you could have like a good cop, bad cop thing going on. So you're allowed to be a little bit more aggressive because the other guy is going to lighten it up a little bit.
There is that, and I suppose I should speak to Sean about that and say, hey, do you want that dynamic? Because you're right, there's the good cop, bad cop, but there's also the feeling of this is somebody else who's organized it. I'm in their home, you know, how do they want this to be? And I think he wants it to be smooth and nice because he has a relationship with this guy and with lots of other people, and he wants them to come back on, which is, you know, totally fair enough. I don't want to be the guy that ruined it, and the next time he wants the Aryan Brotherhood guy on, he won't come on.
Although I guess they can always say, like, if, let's say your co-host, Sean, were to call up the Aryan Brotherhood guy, the guy could say, listen, Sean, I'm okay with you, just don't have that Jew on anymore.
He could say that. That would go against the stuff he was saying, though, because he was trying to say, like, oh, I've got no problem with, you know, it does disarm people, me being Jewish, I think, especially talking to these people. We were talking about this before, that, you know, I think conspiracy theories, often the roots is one thing in common. Firstly is that, you know, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you believe in all the conspiracy theorists together, but also Jewishness tends to be the thing at the middle. And some of the biggest conspiracy debunkers that I think you and I have both interviewed or known about, you know, Michael Shermer, Mike Rothschild, these are Jewish guys. So I asked them, like, do you think it comes from, you know, a lot of people have this distrust of the media and all these things. I think if you're Jewish and you grow up in that world, particularly if you're a skeptical kind of person, quite secular, your distrust is of conspiracy theories. So it's a really complicated thing. We're right in the middle of those conspiracies and the cults and things. And when I tell those people, I get them on the show, like, I'm Jewish or whatever, they tend to be polite. People are polite, and then they don't go as crazy as they would do.
Yeah, and particularly the thing is they want your audience to like them.
Yeah.
So they're not going to say if they're not idiots. They know, okay, this person's like this, so his audience must be like this. I'm not going to say anything totally off the wall. But you mentioned the case of the guy from the Moonies, but he might have his own weird theory. That person like sounds like just crazy. So you don't want just a crazy person.
Yeah.
Like, it would be interesting when you said, somebody from the Moonies contacted me, I got interested for a split second because, you remember that day they married like 20,000 couples in one day? I would be really curious to talk to someone who was married that day as a Moonie. Like, how'd they meet? Their spouse? What was the marriage like? What happened? Did they think it was weird that they were all being married on the same day?
I did have a Moonie on. I can give you his contacts if you want.
That would be great. Well, what did he say? Did he get married that day?
It wasn't that day, but I can't remember too. You end up doing 3 episodes a week. I can't remember too much.
Yeah.
He's a really, really nice guy called Elgin Strait. And he's American, but he lives in Britain now. And he was, fully signed up. His parents. The thing with the Moonies is their parents can't go to heaven until they have children who I think also get married to other Moonies.
Wow.
So there's a lot of, imagine that pressure.
Yeah.
So, and you do feel, and he said this, you feel a bit like a commodity. You feel like you are the thing that will get your parents into heaven. You don't feel like you're the thing that they want to love. You're doing them a favor.
What if you decide not to get married? Are your parents going to like disown you, or are they going to cry?
Yeah. Often, or they would, or it depends how extreme they are. They might just make judgments and say things, and but they'll think, okay, we can't go to. So because of that, the Moonies often adopt, and there's loads of what they would call child, transporting or. To not use another word that gets banned on YouTube.
It's fascinating. So, like, what I always think of, obviously, this is a marketing strategy, right? So it's how it's literally a pyramid scheme, because it's everybody. You have 4 kids, they have 4 kids, and then it grows exponentially. And the Moonies are still around. Like they're bigger than ever. It's just Reverend Moon is dead.
Yeah. Well, also because that Shinzo Abe, the Japanese prime minister, was killed because of his involvement in the Moonies. He gave talks, loads of people have given. It's another one a little bit like Scientology and NXIVM, where celebrities would go and give these big speeches at these places and endorse it and give it credibility, so more people signed up to these things. So those people, that is an example, I suppose. It's not, we were talking before about, should we platform people? When you go and give a speech at an abusive cult, I think that's a different thing. I wouldn't go and talk to Scientologists or to the Moonies, but Shinzo Abe did. And I believe the man who killed him from a gun that he made at home, it would look like a piece of wood or something. His mother, I think it was, had gotten into the Moonies and given all her money away to them.
You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team, or I can pick my favorite players, and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So, I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get two memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply. You know, we were talking earlier about Scientology, and you were mentioning this weird story where they were killing the pets of someone who's a Scientologist who's now being accused of rape. The accusers are finding their pets killed.
Yeah.
And how do they know it's by Scientologists? I guess because it's all of them.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think there's been a few pets killed now, and it was similar poison. I would need to check facts exactly on that. And I think it's one of those things where no one really knows what's going on. It's just stranger than true. I said to you before, I think that it's the weirdest thing in today's age. Like, everybody's sitting here arguing about the culture wars and wokeness and what word we use. And I'm, all for that. I get right in the middle of those conversations. And nobody is saying, like, isn't it weird that the most famous guy in the world is and everyone gets angry when I say that as well, because he's not the most famous. Okay, he's not the most famous. He's one of the, he's up there. Saying he's the most famous person in the world isn't insane, which means he's pretty famous, right? He's the head of a cult, an abusive, coercive cult.
Yeah, so and we're talking about Tom Cruise. And
Yes.
If Tom Cruise wanted to go on your podcast, and I don't think he's ever been on any podcast, if Tom Cruise wanted to go on your podcast, but his team, a half hour before he's supposed to go on, his team sends you, here's a list of questions you can't ask him, would you do it?
I would do it because he's just such a big name, and because I would get to talk to Tom Cruise. And that's the thing. That's what we're stuck with now. Everybody wants to talk to Tom Cruise. That interview he did with somebody Overton, he's an Australian presenter. He said he actually blindsided Cruise a bit at the beginning of the interview. The very first thing he said to him, like, "Hello, Tom." I can't do an Australian accent, but it's like, "All right, Tom. I didn't know I'd have to go through a 4-hour Scientology briefing before just to speak to you." And you've got to watch this interview. It's the maddest thing on the internet. And you see Tom Cruise, you see those eyes, the intense eyes. And he goes, "Well, you didn't have to." And he said, "Well, I got the impression I did." He's like, "Well, you didn't have to go." And it's just this really awkward thing. The whole interview after that is really awkward because he's obviously asking things he wasn't supposed to ask. And they're quite simple things. They're just like, do you still speak to Nicole? Which is quite a usual thing for Australians to want to know about, right? Why? Because she's Australian. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to know that? And he starts going, "You're crossing the line here. You know you're crossing a line. Come back from that line now." It gets very Scientology-ish on him. And it's really weird. And then the weirdest part of the whole thing is right at the end, because it's an hour of Cruise just going mad at him. At the end, this guy Overton is just like, "Oh, that was an interesting interview, wasn't it?" And Tom Cruise is like, "Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was really good." And he gets up and gives him like a hug, and he's like really intense. He's like, "Yeah, well, you went out of line a few times and I pulled you back in. It's fine." Just intense guy.
And so here's my question. Why do people, everybody, it's like a common thing where we know Scientology is almost like a joke. Like, why do people join Scientology and like seriously believe in it? And who knows, maybe it gives them some satisfaction in their life or helps them with their problems, or maybe there's some meditation technique in there that really alleviates their anxiety. I don't know. But you hear such weird stories and such extreme stories. Who joins? Who joins today?
I think it is harder for them because of the internet, firstly. Like they are getting smaller. They are less able to employ their fair game tactics, which is when they go after people who have left, because there are too many who have left now. So now if you leave Scientology, you're less likely to have your pets killed or to get harassed at your house and stuff. But there's still a lot. I still get messages from Scientologists, angry ones, shouting at me. I think, and it's interesting because like cults rely on secrecy. They need secrecy and mystique, and if you complete this level, then you'll get this, and you'll get eternal something or other. And L. Ron Hubbard, I don't know the numbers exactly, but it was something like level 7. That will be when you know everything. They're up to like level 14 now because he died, and they just keep inventing new levels. Every time you get to the top level, there's another one about secret knowledge about aliens and spirituality and stuff.
And I feel like a lot of cults or religions kind of have taken that blueprint of a cult and like the idea of like first level, second level, third level. It's almost like social media. Like they gamified religion.
Yeah.
Or actually social media is like these religions, because the religions have been around longer. Gamifying gives people that dopamine rush, and it gives them something to like go for, and they feel, everybody wants a hierarchy, so they feel like they have status over other people. And it's funny how Twitter or like any of these social media is structured the same way. Like how many followers you have? Do you have a blue check mark or another check mark? Are you, this member or this type of member or pro member or amateur member, whatever it is? There's all this gamification that it does work.
Yeah, status. We're desperate for that status. So
it's funny how like social media, even like, oh, I'm gonna follow this guy on social media. He's got 1 million followers. He must have something to say. It's like okay, that's like a guru of social media, and then people call themselves influencers. Like that's like. It used to be like a joke. If someone said I'm an influencer, that used to be a joke because, well, you haven't done anything in life. You just have followers on Twitter. But now, like, that's what people say they do for a profession. All they've done is accumulate followers on like some social media platform.
I think it's similar to a cult. I think, and again, people disagree with this, but the word cult is really hard to define. It's a really broad definition. And so I think you get cultish. You get a 1 out of 10, which is like Jumba Juice or fitness training or something like that, where people go and you feel like if I leave, I'm letting down the team. It's not really a cult, but it just has a little bit of those cultish elements to it. 10 out of 10 is, Jonestown, where they all, a lot of them killed themselves and the rest were killed, and Heaven's Gate as well, where they killed themselves. The drink the Kool-Aid phrase, which was wrong. It wasn't Kool-Aid. It was another type of drink that they.
Oh, really? I always thought it was Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Wait, the Jonestown one wasn't Kool-Aid?
I can't remember which one it was. Whichever one of the two, it was either that or Heaven's Gate. The alien one.
Yeah.
When they were sitting. Yeah, they all had Nikes.
Is that the Waco one? Waco compound?
I think so.
Texas?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So they all have these things. I mean, you described as well NXIVM. NXIVM stole a lot from Scientology, and it's like this tiered group. And, once you get into the final group, instead of a Lord Xenu in Scientology, you get to or have to have sex with the leader, Keith Raniere. That was it's called DOS, was the sort of top level. So you get into that, you've got to then be part of this sex group with him. So what a thing to suddenly realize when you get there. You also have to be branded with his initials, like a tattoo, like a proper branding thing. And also branded either his and hers as well, because it was Alison, was it Alison? Not Alison Brie. It was an actress, a famous actress.
Yeah, the girl from Smallville. Jay, what's her name? Blonde-haired girl from Smallville who played Chloe. All right.
Which, Mac.
Alison Mack. Yeah,
Alison Mack.
Right.
Yeah, she's in prison, I think.
I don't think she got in prison. I don't know. I followed the case for a while because I had one friend I knew who was in the cult too, who I think might have been married to her, quote unquote married. But that was they're all, it all boggles the mind. Like, how do people make the decision? This is going to be good. This is going to be uplifting for my life. Did they not know something in the beginning, and all their friends are doing it, so they decide to try it? But then they give up everything. Like all those actresses who were in NXIVM, they gave up their careers.
Right. Remind me to get onto Bitcoin after, because I'm going to ask you about this, because I think there's some similar.
Yeah, there's definitely cult, like any new thing. There's cult like aspects to it. Not just crypto, but like the internet when it first started. People either were like super obsessed with the internet in the 90s, or they thought it was a fad and a scam. Same thing's going on with crypto now.
Yeah.
And same thing happens with like lots of like self-help writers, or like you say though, there's a range from 1 to 10 of, I would say someone crosses the line when they gamify it, probably. That's even wrong to say too, because they might truly believe what they're doing, so they gamify it to encourage people to achieve the insights that they've had. So maybe it's just crosses the line when they know what they're saying is wrong and they're doing it for money or sex or whatever.
Yeah, but it's still bad. It's even worse when they think what they're doing is right. They're doing all these mad things.
Yeah.
And look, Bitcoin's different, but I guess the culty stuff. And what I was going to say is that Scientology now, they can't, there's no secrets anymore, because everybody knows what the secret is that you find out. It's that Lord Xenu banished a bunch of, killed loads of people, and their souls all went into volcanoes in the earth, then came out and went into people, and then they control your happiness levels and things like that. It's basically that. South Park did it, and they wrote a thing saying, this is what Scientologists really, really believe. So, everyone knows that is the thing. Because of the internet, everyone knows that. But now Scientology put on their website stuff like, by the way, all that South Park stuff, that's not what it is. So people would spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get through, when they'll go, actually, that was what it is. Sorry. Awful.
Yeah, and I guess they feel comfortable lying about it because maybe in the beginning it's just like a self-improvement thing, and that's how they get people sucked in.
They believe that, they believed L. Ron Hubbard was a prophet, and they believe David Miscavige and Tom Cruise are sort of bigger than, if we look at, as you say, so someone who's got 1 million Twitter followers or a blue tick, it does make a difference for me. Someone emails me and says, hey, I want to come on your podcast. I'll check it out, right?
Yeah.
And it does make a difference. If someone's got 10 followers, unless it's really like this person's mad, done really awful, horrible things, or I don't know what. But then I see someone who's got a blue check and 1 million followers. Well, it's
well, and I can guarantee you, book advances now are 100% correlated with social media followings. Where you are in the cult of social media, that determines the size of your book advance. You're not going to get $1 million book advance if you don't have millions. You probably need 5 million followers across social media to get a $1 million book advance.
Wow. But then, yeah, you can game it. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, you can game it. Nobody, and the thing is, publishers don't know too that your social media following is not necessarily going to read your book.
Yeah.
So like just even in the basic rules of direct marketing, let's say I have an email list with 1 million people, and I email all 1 million, hey, please read my book. Maybe 1% will go out and buy your book, and some percentage of that will read it. So it has nothing. It's really correlated with very few things.
You'd think they'd do the work, though. Why do you'd think they would have worked that out and gone, okay, there's no point going by that,
You mean the publisher?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they just don't know, because they don't have big social media followings, and they sort of trust all the, and I guess some of the best, every bestseller they do have has a big social media following. But so that is what they focus on. They don't focus on the people who have books that don't do so well, that also had big social media followings, but they do know that when they did select for social media following, some of those became massive bestsellers. And they only need a few massive bestsellers to stay in business.
Yeah. Are you on social media a lot? Are you arguing with people on there?
Not really. I used to be a lot more. Like I used to be very focused on it. Let's say about 10 years ago, where, for instance, every Thursday, I did this for 6 years, like clockwork. Every Thursday from 2:30 to about 4:30, I would do a Twitter Q&A. And that got me tons of followers. So I would just answer any question anybody had about finance, self-help, books, writing, podcasts, anything anybody wanted to ask. And people would sometimes say, well, who are you to answer? And I would just be honest. I'd say, I'm nobody, but I'll answer anybody's question. But that was great for getting followers on Twitter. Or I would write articles in other places and say, follow me on Twitter in the middle of the article and provide the link. So I focused on it for a while. And then, I don't know, I just lost complete interest. I think what I noticed was about every 18 months, something would happen that would provoke outrage. And it was getting like somebody would either write an article about me that I felt was lying, but it would make a lot of people angry at me. Or maybe I wrote an article that a lot of people disagreed with, so it would provoke outrage. And every 18 months, the outrage would get worse and worse and worse. And so the last time it happened, when I wrote this article about New York City, it was so bad. Right. I actually don't even think it was my choice. I just kind of got burnt out and just stopped posting.
There was also, I just researching, there was a thing that people kicked off at you about not investing in something that was on a podcast.
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember that.
It was like some podcast.
Oh, yeah. No, that was a Shark Tank kind of podcast called The Pitch. And you spend 20 minutes with a company and then you're supposed to commit like real money to invest. And I would say, yeah, I'm interested in this company. I'd be interested in investing this money. And then I would do my due diligence and I decided not to invest. It's not like, but they act like you're making like a legal deal right there in 20 minutes on a podcast. That's not what, and by the way, none of the other people invested either, but for some reason I was like called out and like, it's because I didn't appear on the next episode, something like that. And I was like shamed for not investing. And everyone was like, oh, this guy's a jerk. He said he would invest in this ex-veterans, this veterans business.
Was it about that?
And he didn't. But there was a couple other investors there who never invested, but I guess they just kept on doing the due diligence ongoing, whereas I made a final decision not to invest.
But did you email them to tell them that?
No, that's what I didn't do. So that's part of the problem.
I know you now, and I'm not surprised. You're the worst emailer.
I am. Okay, you got to tell, so we were talking about this earlier, you were saying you feel anxious when someone writes you, and so you respond instantly or else you feel anxiety.
Yeah.
My thing is I feel anxiety when someone writes me, and so I don't respond, but then I get more anxious because then time builds up. And I literally apologize to so, even some of my best friends. I'm not mad at you. I promise I will eventually write once I get over my anxiety about this. But when I thought you wrote and I said, come on. Apparently the story's different.
Yeah. Well, okay. It's interesting because you also wrote an article saying you don't respond to your kids. You wish you responded to your kids more often.
Yeah, I do. I'm bad at that as well.
Man, I'm fascinated just because it's just a different way of being, and not in either. I don't mean it to suggest, I'm so good I reply to emails. It comes from a purely selfish reason of the obsessiveness in me. I'm going to forget it. I've got to do it now. I've got to do it, and I wish I didn't have that. So I respect that you don't have to do it. No, you said,
but I get anxious about it. I feel I should, and then I get really stressed out to the point where now I can't ever.
Whereas people will think, oh, he doesn't care.
Yeah. Then I get a lot of emails saying, did I do something wrong? Do you hate me?
Do you reply to those?
Sometimes I do, but they make me nervous when they send that. Because then I have to respond. But then sometimes I catch myself writing those emails to people I know who are like me, don't respond.
Yeah.
So then I figured, you know what? This is a karma thing. So if I just respond to everybody, I bet you everybody will respond to me. I bet you that will start happening. But there's a whole list of people I have to respond to now. And I'm so ashamed because I love all these people that some of them are like good friends and I feel like I've really upset them. But then it really comes from this. I hate to say this, it comes from my mother.
Okay.
So my mother, I didn't call her back once for like a month or so. And I called her back and she starts screaming at me. And ever since then, I've just had a hard time. I just don't want people to scream at me. And I feel like it's going to, like, literally, it's like this cliche therapy thing that it comes from not responding to my mother once.
Take me back to your childhood, James.
Right. It's exactly that.
Yeah. Seriously, though, take me inside your mind when an email like that comes to you. What are you? You're sitting at your desk.
Email comes to me. So I write a lot. I write every morning. I spend a lot of time on writing, and I've written 20 or so books, and I love writing. I love the process of writing, and that includes and I like when my kids have a book report or an essay they have to write. I will sit there for 4 hours, word by word, helping them write and teaching them writing. So when someone writes me an email and it's a little bit of emotion, and I really want to think about it, I really want to write a good response, but then I don't have time that day. And so I say, I'll do it the next day. And then and then the next person writes. And so now I have 2. And then the next person, I have 3, but I still have all the podcasts. I still have my normal writing. And so I take writing very seriously. So writing an email, maybe I take too seriously. And I feel like I really want to craft a great response. And it's just too much. I put too much pressure on myself.
It's funny though, because I know you now. And when you know someone and it's like, oh, they're a bad emailer, it's not really a big deal. It's just like, oh God, yeah, he never replies to you. You know, it's just like, what is it? It's like, oh, well, he smokes a lot. It's a bit annoying, or he's a bit loud when he talks in a cafe. It's like those things, no one cares. But when it gets onto like a professional level, and as you say, it's on Twitter, it's suddenly everyone piles on, and it's like the worst thing. He didn't reply to a thing he'd done on a podcast, but it's just like, well, he doesn't. But with us, you said at the end, you surprised me when you said, come and stay the night. Yeah, come on. So I had to email lovely Jay and say, is that happening? Because I've emailed and you weren't replying to emails. So I had to go to Jay and go, is that, and I thought definitely not, because I'm so...
No, Jay asked me and I said, of course, yeah, that's what I told him.
I'm shocked. I was shocked because I'm so used to, if somebody doesn't reply, I would usually think like, okay, they didn't really mean it, or they regretted saying it. And then even up until just now, I mean, the last time we spoke was months ago on that podcast when it's just funny. But it sounds like I'm having a go now. Honestly, I'm quite happy. I'm delighted.
No, I appreciate it. Like, this is definitely like a fatal flaw for me, is that I don't know, I get so focused on what I'm doing that day, and then the list of emails are piling up. But the great thing is, Jay, who everyone knows is the podcast producer, Jay, say hi. You come on the podcast a lot, or you don't have a microphone on him, do you?
Hi.
So Jay comes on the podcast occasionally. So we were just at a conference, and everybody who like even started handing me a business card, Jay would just grab it because he knows that I'm never gonna.
Jay's amazing.
And my wife Robin, who's somewhere around here, she if Jay wasn't around, Robin would grab it. Like, don't give it to James because he's just not gonna respond.
Oh,
but
man.
and she says, if you want to text him, text me, and then I'll respond. So.
But it's not really a big deal, is it? But it just feels like it is in that Twitter world, really.
But you respond. My wife Robin is like this too. She responds instantly, and if someone writes us, and if let's say someone writes the 2 of us and needs a response from me, she will just ask me every 5 minutes, "Did you respond yet? Did you respond yet? Did you respond yet?" And so like I'm always I like, some people are like that, where if they don't respond instantly, and I think there's a danger in that too, because we live in this kind of real-time responding world where, it used to be you got a message on your answering machine, your antique answering machine, you weren't home, so you couldn't respond.
Yeah.
And now, though, everybody's checking their email all the time. So when you send an email and you don't get a response instantly, there's a dynamic that happens in both directions.
Yeah.
Because I know you read the email. I sent it 15 minutes ago. You had to have read it by now. So...
It's a pressure. It's really stressful. And I made a point as well of replying to every single comment on YouTube since it began.
That's smart, though.
Yeah, everything. You do it for yourself. Even when that's why I'm not digging you out, because I know the reason I do it is my own. I remember going to therapy in Argentina. I went to see a therapist because why not? It's the capita. The most therapists in the world is Argentina.
Yeah. The joke is like, if you're riding in a cab, your cab's a therapist.
Yeah, exactly. So I went. It was like $10. And it was a free Spanish class as well. So why not? And I remember going in just thinking I was great, right? And I must have been 24 or something. And no one's great when no one's great at any age, let alone at 24. I just thought I was great because I'm so nice to people, and I'm always doing things like that. I'm replying to everyone's emails and stuff. And his like first appraisal, the first thing he said, he was like, you just want, and he did like a clapping sign with his hands. He was like, you want this. And, you know, that's why you do what you do. That's what motivates you. You want everybody to like you and all this stuff. And from that moment on, I decided never to moralize. And that's a huge thing in my podcast as well. And that can be tricky, as you touched on before. If I've got like a Nazi on the podcast, I should really be saying stuff to them like, hey, hang on. But I don't want to ever say things from a point of view of, I wouldn't have done that if I were in your place and had your brain or whatever. I could have done the same thing as you. I don't want them to think I'm above that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, take the Aryan Brotherhood guy. You said, I guess that's an organization formed in jail so that they're protecting each other was the initial thing. So you don't really know what experiences he or she has been through, and so it's hard to. But I like this idea of just kind of like turning that muscle off, the moralizing muscle off in a podcast. And people should know that that's what podcasters do. You can't have like an antagonistic the guy will leave in the first 5 minutes. The guest will leave in the first 5 minutes. You have to keep the conversation going. So,
and next guest won't come on if they hear you digging out everyone else.
Right, they'll get scared.
Yeah.
So
plus, I don't like moralizing. I find it boring. I find moralizing people boring. And we've spoken about this before, but obviously, this sort of woke. I hate saying the word woke, but that can be very moralizing. It's why I'm so turned off by it. I find it's the moral thing, the righteousness. But before it would have been the religious right, and it still is as well. I don't want to hear. I just find it very boring.
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very, very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional, and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com. This is such a valuable service for all business owners, big businesses, small businesses, doesn't matter. I wish I had this in the many different businesses that I've started. Sometimes it seems like your business is humming, but then suddenly you don't understand it. You're starting to fall behind. You're not understanding where your costs are, where your revenues are, where your payments are. Teams are buried in all sorts of like BS work, and you can't seem to close the books. So you need like one dashboard, one source of truth. I'm jealous of this business, NetSuite from Oracle, of course, NetSuite by Oracle. I wish I'd come up with this idea. It's a brilliant concept to have all your business intelligence on one dashboard. This is why you need to know these three numbers: 37,000, 25, and 1. So 37,000, that's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. 1, because your business is one of a kind. So you get a customized solution for all of your key performance indicators, your KPIs, in one efficient system with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need to grow all in one place. So right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance absolutely free at netsuite.com/James. That's netsuite.com/James to get your own KPI checklist. netsuite.com/James. Well, let me ask you this, because this is about the clapping that your therapist said that you want to hear people clap. I've been thinking about this lately. When you go through airport security, this does segue nicely. When you go through airport security, what do you do in the U.S.? What are you thinking about?
Please, can I get everything right so that I get correct, so I don't have to be corrected?
Yeah. Like when I go through airport security, I want everybody to see me like just perfectly. Like this man is a machine. He's got his laptop in his hand, puts it down in the bin, has his shoes off already. Boom, 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 right through. No waste. I want everybody to be impressed by me.
Yes.
Like I want an audience at airport security. And you never get it because they're all busy with their own thing. But I'm a pro now at airport security.
I do that pro thing with being very fast when there's like a queue for something. So let's say there's a queue for like to buy something from a shop. Everyone is so slow in front of me. So I'm like there when I arrive with my card ready, with what I want ready. And I reach over before they've even given me the card machine. I'm like, and I walk off and I want to go, see how quickly it can be done?
Right. See, it's not just about like getting it done fast. You want other people to notice.
Yeah, of course.
So it's the same thing with a lot of these things. Unfortunately, I didn't get that with, and I wish I was better at responding to email, but now I'm known as the bad emailer. So I'm known by everybody as that. I gotta correct that. That's one thing. If I could correct anything, I would correct that.
But this is how problematic behavior starts, because in a cult or whatever it might be, if people start to have a go at you too much and you're known as the bad thing, you can switch over and you go, you know what? I'm never going to have status for that. Like, you're going to continue doing the safety checkout stuff, check-in, because you're good at that. You're known as James Altucher, the great security airport guy, right? But you're known as the bad emailer. Even if you email fantastically for the next 10 years, you won't be a good emailer because the reputation from before will follow you. So you could then retreat into the shadows. And I'm using this as a metaphor for, say, child molesters or criminals and stuff like that, because you can't ever win status now. You might as well go into the shadows and speak to other people who are also bad emailers. And you all tell each other that it's actually okay not to reply to emails and that no one actually minds and it's helpful. And
well, that's an interesting thing. Like, because, there's always let's say someone was a burglar. They robbed a bank or they mugged somebody and they hurt somebody. They went to jail. And there's this whole sense of, well, you paid your dues. You did your time. There was a sentence. You were convicted guilty by a jury of your peers. The judge considered what is the appropriate sentence for this crime, where at the end of that sentence, he will have paid his dues to society. And, but we don't really have that now in this, and I hate to drag in cancel culture, but take Louis C.K. as an example. Many people feel he should never have a career again. Like, he should never have any TV shows, comedy specials, or anything. And yet, he is, just in terms of raw skill, he's like one of the, depending on how you feel about comedy, he's maybe the most skilled comedian ever. He's like I'll use a chess analogy, he's the Bobby Fischer of comedy. And
that's not going to go over my audience, the Bobby Fischer. Louis C.K. is enough.
Right, he's the Louis C.K. of comedy.
Yeah.
And, but, people will be upset for the rest of their lives at him.
Yeah. And like I say, he will never now be able to win status through righteousness. If there's 3 ways to win status, 3 main ways, one is dominance, one is success, and one is virtue. So dominance in the tribe, if you're a big alpha male, you get the food because you're dominant. If you invented the wheel, you're a successful person. People give you the food and stuff and shelter. And if you're virtuous, you're the person who helps everyone. They give you food as well in return, right? You don't actually have to be virtuous. You just have to make it seem to others that you are, which is where virtue signaling comes from. Louis C.K. is never going to win any points in the virtue one now. He's ruined that. So
Yeah, it's so interesting. I never thought of it that way. So there's three things: virtue, dominance, success. So he'll do it in success, but he's lost the whole people who are in the virtue hierarchy.
Exactly. And that's why you often see... Did you watch BoJack Horseman?
No.
Okay, doesn't matter then. But he does this at the end. He's like a character who gets a similar thing happens to him, like Louis C.K. kind of thing. And he goes the other way. And you see that all the time. You see this, and Louis C.K. has done that. If you see his stand-up since it all happened, he's gone much darker, much more sexual, because he can't win the righteous bit anymore. That's done.
Right. Now you can go full into it.
Boom. Be the horrible guy. Why not? Because the people who appreciate him for his success are still going to go. The virtue people are not going. So that's what he's doing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And this is the thing actually that bothered me about social media is that, like, originally I was writing about my experiences of starting businesses or investing and then going broke and coming back from that. So I had like things about me in the real world that I was writing stories about that people would follow. But then gradually I got disgusted with the fact that people only knew me from social media. They had forgotten that I had done anything else in life. And so for social media becomes this experience unto itself that you don't have to do anything other than social media to have status. And I think that's a troubling thing where people could just sit in front of their computer for their whole lives and get status that way instead of actually like doing things, doing hard things.
Sure. But nowadays being in front of your computer is hard things, isn't it? I mean, what difference if you're doing it from your computer or if you're doing it in real life?
No, it's true. But like, for instance, having like a clever tweet that gets like 1,000 shares is one thing. But let's say, surviving the Holocaust. I'm not saying I did that. I'm just taking an extreme example. Surviving the Holocaust, that's something that's, an incredibly hard thing. Or starting a business and watching it either succeed or fail, either direction is very hard. But a lot of people are like, oh, my tweet, I don't need to do that because my last tweet just got 15,000 shares. So I don't need to do the hard thing. This was hard enough.
But it's not that easy to do a tweet that gets 15,000
That's true, yeah.
What difference? How is that different to Shakespeare writing, an entire sonnet? Okay, there's more artistic endeavor going on there. Maybe,
yeah, but maybe you're right. Maybe certainly TikTok. I love watching TikTok because I don't know how it's like there's 70 magical people on the planet, like jumping from building to building and doing magic tricks in the street and playing Chopin's etudes on a mall piano. And it's like these incredibly talented people doing these amazing things on TikTok. So I would say it is hard to have whatever medium it is, to have the talent and skill for that medium to make it go viral. So that's true. Point taken. But I just wonder, there are some things that are harder than others. Like I feel like supporting a family when you're broke is harder it's more painful than trying to come up with a good tweet. Like people get in pain when they write a tweet and it doesn't get the 15,000 shares. So that, I see that kind of thing too. They get addicted to the dopamine of all those tweets and retweets and shares. And so then they feel miserable when they don't. Whereas if you can't feed your kids, that's a real miserable feeling. And that's happened to me. So, so then I start thinking, well, should I do more things? Should I start another business? Should I write a big book or, that's different from other books that I've written or whatever. But then I also get to, I'm just getting older. Maybe I'm just not as interested in getting retweeted or known for things.
Well, yeah, exactly. Would the big book or the big project, would you do them? Would you be as interested in doing them if you knew nobody would ever see them?
No.
So it's all status, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was never that's a good point. I was never interested in, I would never write for people if nobody would read it. But from the time I was a kid, I wanted to be a writer because I wanted to be famous from writing.
You wanted clapping.
Yeah, I wanted the clapping.
Totally. We all do though. And that's exactly when I say boring, I've realized that I find talking to people who don't admit those things about themselves boring.
Yeah.
I can't sit with those people. I remember the moment it happened. I remember it was a friend of mine when I was 21 years old, and I was having a chat with someone else about how boring opera seems to be. And I know some people like it, and that's fine, but to me, it just seemed really boring. And this woman that we knew overheard us talking about opera and presumed we were talking glowingly about it. And so she came over and said, like, "Oh, I love opera. It's my favorite thing. Oh, don't you love it? Don't you love it?" And I said, "Oh, what's your favorite opera?" Which was mean of me to do because I knew she wouldn't have one. And she said the greatest hits of opera, right? So she's not an opera fan, but she thought she had to say it to get some sort of status and be part of our group and all that stuff.
Right. So what sort of signaling there is she doing?
Success.
Yeah, success. Okay,
She's
because
bright.
successful people go to the opera. The opera's expensive. You wear a tuxedo to the opera.
Exactly.
So
that's what she's signaling. And I just thought, like, I wish instead of that, an infinitely more interesting thing would have been if she came over and said, "I wish I liked the opera because it would make me seem really interesting and fun and clever, but I just can't get into it because it's actually boring." And we could have bonded over all of us going, "God, yeah, we all wish we liked the opera, but don't like it." Just honesty. But otherwise, it's just boring otherwise.
most things kind of are actually the people like opera. I've been to the opera once. I was on a first date, so we went, and there was a intermission in the middle where there was dessert. That was the funnest time that I had in that particular date. But like most things, like I don't even really like going to the movies anymore because now everybody's got like a big TV. You could watch. You could watch the best movie in the world. It was just released 2 weeks ago. It might be on Netflix now. And not only that, I can just with my phone, I could press some buttons and like a world-class chef could cook me dinner and someone in their like Mercedes Benz will drive it over to me and leave it on my doorstep. I don't even have to see them. And it's just like, why go anywhere now?
I should clarify. I don't mean operas. I mean, I find opera boring and you find opera boring, but some people, the other thing she could have said is actually if she was fascinated by opera and loved it, that would have been an interesting thing for me as well, because I could have just tried to understand why she loves it, because at least it would have been sincere and honest. But I can't stand, that's why I like talking to psychopaths. It's why I like talking to people, if it were Louis C.K., for example, because he doesn't have to do the virtue or the extra success.
Right.
I love talking to psychopaths, best people to interview, because you start from a point of them being honest. They're saying to you, I don't have the virtue bit. I'm not going to try and compete for that. So then you can have an open and honest conversation where nobody's trying to one up about what good people they are. That's infinitely more interesting.
Has there ever been anything that you found boring that you later changed your mind on?
Oh, probably because I think that everything, even opera, I think everything probably can be interesting if you either gave it the time or if you had the right kind of brain for it. I don't think I have the right brain for chess. You love chess. So I have to know, I see how much you love chess, and I see a lot of people love chess. So I know it has to have some intrinsic beauty and amazing stuff to it. There must be stuff. I think more things the other way, because I think there were a lot of stuff when I was 20 or 21 and I was so desperate as a student or whatever to tell myself that I had the success one, that I was interested in this kind of la-di-da stuff, that I would sit and watch Nouvelle Vague French black and white cinema. Right? And I said to myself, this is so interesting. Look at the way, a boy is running for 7 minutes of screen time, Now I would find that endlessly boring. I have no patience for that now.
We have a lot more to talk about, so stay tuned. The next episode will come out in about a week or so. If you like this episode, once again, subscribe, tweet about it, share it with your friends. It really helps me out. It's so important for the podcast world to rank high on all these different lists. So subscribe, share it, tweet it. Let me know if you subscribe. Thanks again. See you next time.
Finding the music you love shouldn't be hard. That's why Pandora makes it easy to explore all your favorites and discover new artists and genres you'll love. Enjoy a personalized listening experience simply by selecting any song or album, and we'll make a station crafted just for you. Best of all, you can listen for free. Download Pandora on the Apple App Store or Google Play and start hearing the soundtrack to your life.
1, 2, 3, 4. Those are numbers. But you already knew that. If you want to know what number you're going to pay each month for your car, use Kelley Blue Book My Wallet on Auto Trader. They're really good at numbers. Auto Trader.